Hi guys, and welcome back to the Secret Sanctuary. I'm going to do something a little bit different tonight. Unboxing videos are very popular in the statue world, but we don't really see them too much in the vintage comic book world. So I thought it would be fun to do an unboxing video for my winning bids in the December ComicConnect auction. I won 2 books in the auction. One is Action Comics number 39, and the other is Action Comics number 56, both of which are nice war covers. If you're not part of the vintage collecting world as far as comic books, I'll give you a little bit of background. When I was growing up, the best places to buy vintage comics were comic shops, sometimes swap meets. Mail order catalogs were huge, and the Comic Buyer's Guide was a weekly newspaper that had a lot of classified ads or quarter page ads where people sold comics. Some of them were collectors, some of them were dealers, but every week you would pour through that magazine trying to find comics that you needed, and often you'd have to list alternates in case the one that you wanted was sold, and it was a very time-consuming process, and often you didn't get what you really wanted. But these days it's a lot different. If you really want primo golden age or silver age, there are auction houses, online auction houses, and that's where you get the good stuff these days. There are 3 that I would recommend and are considered the leaders in the vintage comic market. One is Heritage Auctions out of Texas, another is ComicLink, and the third is ComicConnect. They all do business a little bit differently. I would say that ComicConnect is best known for their Golden Age offerings, while ComicLink might be better known for their Silver and Bronze Age offerings. Heritage has a lot of great stuff, but if you are a consigner, consigning to them, selling your comics through them, you're going to pay them more money. A larger percentage of the winning bid will go to Heritage than it will to ComicConnect or ComicLink, which is a flat 10% from those latter two. Whereas with Heritage, you're going to have a 10% buyer's premium and a 19.5% sellers. So essentially you're giving up 29.5% of the final sales price or hammer price when you're going with Heritage. That doesn't mean that's not the best deal. They put out a beautiful catalog. They do a lot of advertising. It's an extremely professional website, and they get top dollar for the comics. So depending on what you're selling, that might be your best bet. But very often you're going to make more money going through ComicLink or ComicConnect just because you're only paying 10% of that final price. So getting 90% as opposed to 70% is usually going to be a better deal for you, unless it's a book that is so tailored to Heritage and their clientele that the winning bid might be high enough to equal that disparity in what you're getting back. Anyway, this is from the December ComicConnect auction. Again, I won 2 books. I would recommend all 3 auction houses. They're all great to deal with. I know the people involved in all 3 houses. I think they're all ethical. I've never had a problem with them. And this is, I'm talking about 20 years I've been dealing with some of these folks. So that says something about their character. I will say, in regards to ComicConnect, that in the past year to year and a half, they have changed the way they image comics. It used to be that they used a scanner. And about a year and a half ago, it seems to me that they switched over to photographing their comics rather than scanning them. And I'm guessing that that's what it is because I don't know specifically. But they're also photographing them at a slight angle. And the problem with that is, I remember last year I consigned a pretty expensive comic to them. And when I first saw the images on their website, I was shocked because, like I said, it's at an angle. And because it's at an angle, it made it look like the book was miscut. And it was a pricey book. And so I contacted Steve Fischler right away, and he had his team changed the images. They used a scanner instead, and then it was just great. It was fine. So the problem is they are still using that other method, and there's something about it where I cannot see clearly the bottom of the books. It seems a little fuzzy in the bottom of those images, and as a result, I don't really know what I'm getting until I unbox. And so these are two pricey books, and I'm hoping that they're as nice as I expect them to be. Both are graded 9.0. They're both books where I have lower grade copies, which I'll be selling. These are nicer copies, hopefully. But I don't want to disparage ComicConnect because I think they're a great company and I think they're very ethical, and I would not hesitate to recommend them. But I do wish that they would change their imaging back to the way they used to do it. It's just scanning the books gives a very clear idea of what you get when you unbox. So the first one we're going to look at is Action Comics number 56. See if I can do this without dropping them. This is a war cover where Superman is fighting, or actually he's stopping a bomb from destroying the pyramids. It's a wonderful cover, and it looks pretty darn good. Like I said, it's just this very bottom part of the cover. On some of their scans, it's hard to tell if there are defects or not. It seems a little bit blurry. I'm not sure why. This is from a collection I don't know much about. You'll see the initials INT written in pencil there. That's a well-known collection, and comics from that collection are very well thought of. They tend to be very nice copies. But to be honest, I don't know very much about the collection. I wish that I did. But I'm very happy with this comic. It's definitely an upgrade from my 7.0, which I'll show you in a minute. And I'll be happy to have this in my collection. There are minor defects along the left edge of the back cover, but nothing that isn't consistent with the 9.0 grade. The CGC notes on this are white pages, pyramid sphinx cover, and there's a Hitler appearance in the story within. That is a pretty cool book. I'm very happy. Okay, let's set that aside. The next one is Action Comics number 39, which is an early war cover, and I say early because this is well before Pearl Harbor. And this also is a very nice book. So it's a nighttime scene with Superman flying down on some German soldiers. Actually, it's the German soldiers shining up their searchlights at Superman. And I love that combination of the blue, the green, the yellow, the red. It's very dynamic. It's a beautiful cover. And this too seems very consistent with the grade. Again, if you're not terribly familiar with the vintage comic book market, CGC that grades the comics, like anyone else, they approach things differently from one day to another. They try to be as consistent as possible, but when you see a 9.0 grade, sometimes it might look more like 8.5, and sometimes it might look more like 9.2. So that's another reason why imaging is so important when you're buying online. I've been using the same scanner for years. It's way out of date. I have to keep an old laptop with Windows XP on it because the scanner only runs on Windows XP. And I would never keep that laptop. It's ancient, or the scanner. But it makes perfect scans. I have dealers that email me all the time saying, what scanner do you use? Your images come out great. So I would hope that ComicConnect would rethink the way they're currently imaging comics. To be honest, I also have a problem with Heritage's imaging. In very many of their scans, the area of the spine right here, there's a strange effect where the book almost looks wet. And they're not. I've come to be very familiar with whatever the problem is with their scans, and I can recognize when it's that effect rather than an actual defect on the comic. But it's, to me, if I'm going to be consigning comics, I want the scans of my books that are for sale to be precise and to accurately reflect the comic. So again, I have great respect for all three companies, but I hope they'll appreciate some constructive criticism about their imaging, because it's vitally important for the success of both the auction, the consignor, and the customer, most importantly. There are no glaring defects on here that make me wish that I hadn't purchased this book. It's really a very pretty 9.0. I'll show you both books. Actions have always been one of my favorite titles. There's a run of Actions from 52 to about 63, so it's about a 12-issue run that I think is one of the best runs of Golden Age war covers in all of comics. They're just phenomenal, just beautiful, beautiful covers by Fred Ray and Jack Burnley and a few other artists that, to me, just accurately reflect the mood of the nation after Pearl Harbor. There's not too many covers where Superman looks angry. He's just not that kind of character. This is one of those covers where he doesn't look very happy that the Germans are trying to destroy the pyramids here. Another example would be Action 63, where he does not look happy. He's destroying a Japanese Zero with the pilot looking pretty shocked on that cover. And Action 48, which is a similar cover of him destroying another plane. So anyway, as I said, I have undercopies of these three books. I have 2 copies of Action 39. I have an 8.0 and a 7.0. And I have a 7.0 of Action 56. And I'll be selling these books. They're on my website, www.detective27.com. They're on there right now. If you're interested, or if you just want to get a closer look at my undercopies here, they're on there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about them, either in the comments below, or if you want to email me at nearmint@aol.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions there. So I think we'll call it quits with that. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel, and have a great night, guys. I hope you enjoyed my first Golden Age unboxing video.